Okay. No, we can start with Andrew here, for his
Yeah.
stake. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna share my screen real quick because I might have gone a bit overboard when I made some slides for this. So
No
let me just
worries.
see. Can everyone see the slides? Well, is this screen share working?
Yeah, it's just still loading for me.
Okay, gotcha.
I got it now. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so again, my name's Andrew, and here are my experience with grad studies and research here at York and all that. So first of all, who am I? Why do you care? Well, I did my undergrad in computer science at Ontario Tech, and then I came on over here to York, did my master's, and enjoyed it so much that I signed up for more, namely a PhD. So I'm in my first year of that right now. I'm here to talk about my research work, how I got started, my experience with grad school, and just some bits of advice that I have for people that are interested or are going to be starting. So before I really get into the meat of this, please interrupt me. So like put messages in the chat, like raise your hand or just unmute your mic and talk if you have a question. I brought slides, again, maybe a little bit overboard, but don't at all worry about that. This is just to kind of guide my thoughts and make sure I don't veer off course entirely. Um, as far as what I'm up to, research. That's kind of the main priority of most grad students. My particular research is mostly in explainable AI and kind of at the intersection of machine learning and databases. Don't worry about what's on the screen so much right now, unless you're really interested, in which case, please be worried and reach out. I'd love to have someone to talk to about my research. Um, as far as what this research actually means or looks like, as far as output, I'm working with my lab, so the data and AI lab at Lassonde. So that's with my primary supervisor, Jarek Slikta, and I also work with Park Godfrey. And we collaborate with IBM. So we look at some of the problems that they have in industry and some of the ideas we have and try to meet in the middle and do something useful. If we succeed, which we have a couple times, we make a publication. So I've got a handful of different projects here that I've got published at various conferences and in a journal. And the kind of cool thing about that is if you go and you do some good research and you get published, you go to the conference. So this picture is me presenting in Hong Kong. I've had the pleasure of also being able to go to Seattle to present and Guangzhou. And then this year we'll be heading to Montreal. Uh, it's not all presenting at the conferences. If the idea of presenting makes you nervous, there's a fair bit of partying as well. So this is a picture of me and one of my lab mates. We're having a beer on the river cruise that was a part of the conference as well. So it's a great opportunity to travel and have some fun. It's one of the big perks of being in grad school for sure. But let's get with how I got started. So I started off with research in undergrad. I met my current supervisor, Yarek, in my third year. I was just taking his big data course and I went to his office hours and chatted with him. This was in the middle of COVID, so we were doing lectures via Google Meets, and basically everyone had their cameras off, everyone had their mic muted, and he looked pretty miserable giving the lectures. So I took mercy on him, and when he would ask a question to the class, I'd be like, "Okay, fine, I'll turn on my camera, I'll answer." Built a little bit of a relationship through that, and then I just went and talked to him about research. Um, I ended up doing an NSERC that summer, so we applied for a summer research award, got it, and then had a really great time. That's where I got started on that first publication I worked on. Um, Finished it out with an undergrad thesis, so more of a chance to do some research, and then did a Lura after I graduated in that middle year or in the middle summer between undergrad and master's here at York, and then did my master's here. So I did 2 years thesis-based masters, collaborated with IBM throughout the whole time. In a thesis-based master's, you also have to do 5 grad level courses. I underscored grad because they tend to be pretty different from undergrad courses. Normally more project based. It's less like, okay, well, how can we test you on this material? You know, I got a midterm, I got a final and all of that. More, okay, you know how to do tests now. How can we present one of these topics a little bit more in depth? Finished that, had a great time, and here I am in my PhD. As kind of like a main takeaway of how this journey works or how you end up from here to there is that we all started somewhere. You know, my initial work in that summer NSERC. I didn't have experience with ML, but I got started on it there. And the best way really to get engaged in this process or to get started is to get to know your professors. Uh, Go to them, ask them about their research. Basically, by definition, everyone with a PhD is a or PhD is a gigantic nerd, and they're an expert in their subject and they're really passionate in it. So if you give them a chance to talk about it, if they're not too busy, they probably will, and you'll get the opportunity to, see if there are any open projects, anything that you might want to contribute to. NSERC and Lura specifically, so both of these are open right now. For applications are a great place to start. It means you end up getting funding to do some research over the summer, and it's a lot easier for a prof to take you into their lab. So what's grad school like? I've got the good, I've hidden the bad for now. We'll get to that. The greatest part for me, or the part that I really enjoy, is I do get to work on things that I'm passionate about. I get to work on complicated ideas, fun projects. I get to meet other people that share really deep interests in the same topic. I've gotten to know my lab mates and my supervisors really well. I've built a ton of usable skills and knowledge. My first year of master's, or rather not my first year, but just throughout my master's, I learned so much more than in my undergrad. I feel like undergrad, you really go like ocean wide, puddle deep into a lot of concepts. You have a lot of different things coming at you. You kind of touch on a whole bunch of different ideas. But doing grad school really let me go deep into the topic that I was interested in. And I also kind of get to treat it like a job. So for the most part, I keep it within normal like 9 to 5 working hours, and you do get paid for it. A lot of people don't realize that there's a funding package, so your tuition gets covered, and through things like TA contracts, you get a little bit of funding. Some of the downsides do kind of treat it like a job. So you're still having to deal with things like deadlines and crunch times. And as much as I've been able to keep things mostly within work hours, sometimes it's like, hey, paper submission deadline's coming up. We have to do some revisions, or there's some other bit of work that needs to get done. And it can kind of consume a lot of your free time, especially if you let it. There's a fair bit of juggling that you have to do, so you have to get pretty good at it. You've got research, which is your main focus. You've got TAing, and at the beginning of your degree, you've got courses. And as much as there is funding, the pay's not great. I wouldn't sign up to be a grad student for the money. Um, Not a great call. Sometimes with research, as much as it can be rewarding to work on something that you're interested in, most of the time, your research project kind of just isn't working, or you're working on some challenge until it starts working. So you got to be okay with hitting dead ends, hitting snags, and kind of dealing with that as it comes. Sometimes it can be a little bit isolating, taxing, stressful. Again, deadlines come at you. You can feel stressed about wanting your project to really get done. These things happen. And then finally, you'd be surprised how much more writing I do these days than actual coding. A giant part of research is reading what work has been done and also being able to communicate your own work. This can be a good thing. I've actually learned to like writing quite a bit, but it's a whole process, and so just be aware of it. Um, and for the kind of Clint Eastwood fans, the ugly. Nothing actually has been too unbearable for me so far. But there's a little asterisk, which is make sure that you get along with your supervisor. If you're thinking about applying to grad school, make sure that your supervisor is a decent person. I've heard horror stories about students leaving meetings with their primary supervisor, like crying. Reach out to the supervisor, meet with them before you apply, talk to students in their lab, things like that. And just make sure that you keep track of things like your mental health and roll with the punches. Research is nonlinear. There's going to be issues. You're going to have to deal with that. So, based off of my experience, what would I consider if you're thinking about applying? Well, for me, my main motivations were like loving to think about complicated problems, right? Like if I'm going to play some games or something, obvious, like CS major, right? I game. I like things that are complicated. I like things that are puzzles or strategy based. And that kind of extends to the kind of work that I'm interested in, right? If it's really complicated, it gets me going. Um, I really enjoyed my first experiences with research, so going ahead and doing something like an NSERC can give you a taste and see whether or not it's something that you really like. I found a great supervisor, so again, I worked with him in my undergrad, my master's, and now my PhD. And I did come in with some romantic idea of like, oh yeah, I want to do science. I want to, grew up on Bill Nye kind of thing, right? But I will say passion is not enough to get you through a grad degree. It is a lot of work and it is work. So you get to some point where, okay, I'm really interested in this material and I am, don't get me wrong, really still quite passionate about my projects, but day in, day out, you have to think about these problems. You have to work on these problems. At some point, you almost kind of want to have some stubbornness, and I don't mean being inflexible in your thinking, but like being able to stick to it, right? It is a lot of independent work. This is research generally, where you need to be able to be self-driven. You need to be a go-getter if you want to have success in your projects. You need to be able to hit a snag, go, okay, what do I need to do next, right? You can't just wait until you have a chance to talk to your supervisor because they're juggling a whole bunch of different projects as well. This your thesis really ends up being your project. At the end of it, you're the expert, so you have to drive it. Um, and if you're thinking about grad school, it should be a means to an end, right? So you should be asking yourself, okay, well, what is this degree going to get me? What am I planning to do with my master's? What am I planning to do with my PhD? Am I going to do software dev? Maybe I enter at a slightly higher pay grade because of it, but maybe I'd be better off just going in and working on it right now. If your goal is to do something in like machine learning or data science, grad degrees are kind of the barrier for entry these days. And they do give you the opportunity to make connections and show your capabilities. To be clear, though, if you're interested in a career in research, the vast majority of the time, you got to be ready to spend your time on a PhD. It's pretty rare, especially in academia. It's basically unheard of. But in industry, you need a PhD in order to find a specific research position, and that means there's an opportunity cost. You're basically almost guaranteed to make slightly less money in the long run. So make sure that the kind of job that you're looking for is something that you really care about and that's worth that trade-off to you. Sorry, there's somebody in the chat. Can you not hear me? I, or can everyone else hear me? I should ask. Okay. Sorry, boss. Might be on your end then. It's recorded at least, so you'll be able to go back if you miss anything. Um, Tips and takeaways before grad school, reach out to different professors, take a look at what they've published, get to know some of them, learn what their research is, and learn what they're about as a person. The most straightforward way to get into a grad program, either like master's or PhD, is to have a supervisor lined up that wants to work with you. After that, normally the application process is a bit of a formality if you have someone like going to bat for you. And then think about the program that you want to join. So, okay, why do I want to consider this specific supervisor? What do they bring to the table for me? Do they have some expertise in a field you're interested in? Like York in particular has a lot of profs that do a lot of good work with databases, right? So that's what I'm working on, and I'm really happy to be here because of that. Do they have industry connection? So if I look at my supervisor's publications, a lot of his co-authors are IBM people, right? So it can give you some sense of, okay, well, who are these people working with? Who do they know? And then once you're in, time management, time management, time management. You got a lot of different tasks. You got to manage them. If you get underwater, that's on you and your learning experience is going to suffer from it. Um, Set expectations with your supervisor. You're probably going to meet them about once a week. Make sure that you don't overpromise and underdeliver. Nice picture of Scotty. You want to come across as a miracle worker? Don't promise that you're going to do something and then not follow through. If you do end up not being able to complete some tasks, something comes up, show that you've done your work. Dig into it, probe as to why, have some ideas so that you can have something to present. Um, get serious about your writing. Again, grad school is a whole heck of a lot of writing. But the kind of key thing and the most important thing I'd say is to take initiative. Even more so than undergrad, if you compare undergrad to high school, grad school is just another step beyond where it's your degree is up to you. What you're going to get out of your degree is really driven by you, and your thesis project is yours. So you're going to get out what you put into it ultimately. That's basically it. Feel free to reach out to me. My email's on the screen. Take a screenshot if you want. More than happy to answer questions now, since nobody interrupted me. I knew none of you would, so it's in the slides. And then finally, yeah, Lura and NSERCs are open right now. The link is there, but if you just Google NSERC Lura York, it'll come up. There are two projects in my lab that we have posted, so maybe you could join me potentially. But thank you everyone for listening to me ramble. If there are any questions, happy to answer.
All right, thank you, Andrew. So if you guys have any questions, so if you guys can answer them, you can answer them like at the end if you don't wanna if you can't think of anything right now. So if there are no questions, then we're on to Kevin right now. So I'll hand it over to
Yeah.
Kevin right now.
Hello. Hello everyone. I'm Kevin Hoy. Hi. Sorry. I do apologize. I do suffer from this um brain neural disorder called Tourette syndrome. I do like I stutter a lot and blurt out weird stuff or even swear words like bad words. Croissant a bit. So please bear with me. Thank you so much. So okay. So basically my sorry. So basically, what Andrew have explained is like a very like overview, a basic overview of like okay, a master's PhD student's journey, how do they get there, and then how do they, what to expect when you're doing a grad school, right? I'm gonna give you a more like specific view on like what to do. So by first giving you let's see, giving you um giving you an overview of my journey. So um let me try to share my screen. Is this working? Okay. What is happening?
Yeah, you can share your screen. I set the permissions out.
Okay,
There you
yep.
go. Yeah.
Yep, it's like yep, so hello, so hello everyone. This is my homepage. This is like my CV portfolio page. It's kind of I know I'm a fucking weeb. I drew this myself. I coded this all effects myself. Okay, so basically what happens is uh so if you look at my page, right, I have all these work experience. So basically I would start with it. So what happens is what get me started is this one day in my second year, I was taking 2001, right, ECS 2001 automata theorem with Professor Supercast Data. Professor Supercast Data, and we're just chatting in his office hour, and he was like, "Oh," and I mentioned I have like a really good GPA, and he was like, "You want to apply to Lura USRA together? You and then with your GPA you can just walk right in." And then I was like, I was first hesitant, but he was like, "The deadline is today." I was like, "Okay, you know what? Let's commit." And then we apply, and then we got in, and then we just like I think he's just as a professor, he just wanted to help out students in general, and then so I got selected by him because I was active in his office hours. So and we just did USRA and in we just did a USRA in medical CT data set and then data set and then but at the same time COVID happened, right? So in that was the summer of 2020, and then COVID happened, right? I did that entire thing online in the presentation conference, everything online. And the next summer I have another idea of like a voice changer, right, using a generative adversarial network. Like I know I'm so old right now. Back then diffusion networks doesn't even exist. And attention transformers are in its infancy, right? And then back then I feel so fucking old right now, but back then we're still using GANs, right? But anyway, it doesn't matter. It was like okay, and I would present again, and because we couldn't, none of us could get any other job in the summer, and I was like okay, whatever. And eventually, right, and eventually we come back to, and through him one on one guiding me, I was able to, you know, learn a lot about like actual research, actual how to do machine learning. And he was like, "Oh, if you like this so much, you know, you really should apply for grad school." That was the moment how I committed. Maybe I should do a master's, right? Beforehand, I was just thinking, okay, I'm just gonna whatever. I'm just gonna get my under bachelor's degree and whatever, get a job, start a startup, whatever, and do whatever. But it really planted the seed of that in me. So eventually, and then you will see, right? And then you will see later in my resume, more recently, right? In the later stage of my resume, I have these other experience. That is because after throughout the year I come back, we all come back to in person after COVID, right? croissant generation. Sorry, ticks. Sorry, ticks. To come back from COVID, and I was just wrapping up taking this chemistry course as well as like first year chemistry course with Professor Kyle Belozerov as well as taking for some reason because of my personal interest I was taking a partial differential equation course with Professor Jude Kong with Jude Zavella Kong, and then we just, and both of these professors really liked me, and in the math course cases, it's because like I was really active in the class. I answered all the questions right, and he was like, you know what, you want to work for me or for a research project on math modeling, right? And at the same time, I was taking this chemistry course, right? And it's like kind of in the winter semester, sir. So if you look at my project, right? I'm the guy who make this spy balloon simulator, empty rooms, course delta, and it was that, right? So this one. So basically what happens is I was taking this chemistry course. I do have like a small interest in like computational science, but then I was, oh, let's code some simulations like computational physics, chemistry, right? And I just coded this simulation project in, right? This grid, because back then we're learning chemistry, right? Rate of reaction of molecules, and then I was like, oh, what? And I was also watching this YouTube video of someone coding a fluid dynamics, like fluid simulators, and I was like, oh, why don't I just combine the two ideas? And here we go, right? This is like a catalyst, an enzyme catalyze green into catalyzes red into blue, right? This is like mixed in there. So basically what happens is I show it to that chemistry professor. He really likes it, and he invite me to his office hour every weekend, and that was how I literally transform into, right, from this just whatever regular, like whatever, okay, it's like whatever machine learning kind of research as my goal, transform into this. I want to study chemistry. I want to study biology, right? I want to study enzyme production, chemical dynamics, right? So this is how I was able to got into I was able to, like, switch tracks into computational science. And at the same time, right, eventually I graduated. And then I had a gap year. I had a gap year, and I apply back to try to apply to master's. So basically what happens is in 2024, I actually did get into Waterloo and U of T with an entrance award. And Waterloo, I worked with that. I tried to work with that professor, and that professor nominated me for Vector Institute Scholarship. If you don't know, like Vector Institute Scholarship for AI is like the biggest, like, for AI scholarship. I could not take it, and I have to stay back at York because of health reasons. Part of it due to my Tourette's, right? Of health reasons, but that's beyond that. But so basically what happens is, okay, so why do I say all this, right? Why do I tell you this entire story? It seems like I'm bragging, right? So basically, what I'm telling you is, most of you are here because you are at least somewhat interested in doing research, doing Lura, and as well as like interested in going to grad school, right? So basically, sorry, I keep saying basically, as Andrew said, right, the single most important thing is find a mentor and have someone accept you, that you apply with them, right? You start out working with them in a Lura project and a summer, and then eventually they take you in as a master's student. Most importantly, you need to keep reaching out to professor. The only reason why I was able to have all this, right? The only reason why I was able to have all these experience, like just out of thin air, thin, like just out of thin air, I have professors inviting me to work in their labs because I go to their office hours. I talk with them about advanced topics, show them projects, like organize. This course I organized a study group, right? And then you just gotta keep reaching out, right? Of course, like ever since like first year, I've been reaching out to different professors. Like some of them just don't care about me, but eventually I just struck, like, the the gold in the gold mine, and I was able to, right? Yes. So basically, sorry. So what you need to do right now, right, is of course I've been thinking what's on? I've been wanting to yeah. I've been so part of the reason why I want to show you guys I'm here is because I want to show you guys this introduce you guys the process of like applying to Lura and USRA, right? Because I want to well, at least in some sense, in a very minimum sense, I want to guide you through I want to guide you through, like, if you are interested in, then what is the first like launch pad that you can, jump on, and with your professor, your professor will give you the rocket fuel and then you launch you up, right? So every year in around this time, right? The deadline is like what? Like next in a few weeks, in like 2 or 3 weeks, in 2 weeks, right? So professors will start recruiting students to work on project with them, and you just really got to reach out to professor, right there in the bottom here, right? They're explore jobs. I'll just send this link in the chat. You know what? Yeah, this is like, and then you guys can look at it after this event is done and see, right? This is the single biggest launch pad you can have to, right? You apply to this, talk to these professor, get them to know you, and then and eventually also get them to become your mentor in your grad degree. And of course, a lot of the times you will need to because I'm also applying to other school, right? I'm also interested in other topics, and Waterloo have a really good quantum computing institution, and my master have really good med school for my biology, chemistry, computer, like using coding for chemistry research, right? So, if I'm need to code apply to other prof, I have sent like a lot of emails to like just random prof. Oh, professor so and so, I'm really interested in your topic, blah blah blah, and these are my and this is my portfolio and past experiences, right? And tell me what you think. Let me know what you think, right? And some of them do accept me in, right? But because they are not York professors, right? They don't know you that deeply or even like at all, aside from that one email you're reaching out. And usually if they like you enough, they will set up an interview and they will chat with you, right? And so basically in that context, letters of reference become extremely important as well. So you'll need to get, well, which is why I just keep telling everyone, you're interested in research, you're interested in you're interested in grad school, right? Research grad school, right? To just keep building connection with profs and keep reaching out and keep like telling them, showing interest in like, especially like interest in their work. Like you don't have to suck up to them, but only really like go with them, like follow them when you're really interested, right? Because if you're just sucking up to them for the sake of sucking up to them, then they probably could see it, right? Like they could observe it and they'd be like, oh, this guy is just whatever. This guy just won grades or won a random letter. That's not gonna work, right? So, but yeah, so yeah, that's sufficient amount of rambling, right? Again, I have driven in the idea of building connection and showing genuine interest, and I would have shown you guys. Okay, 7:35. Okay, a little bit out of time. I would have shown you guys like what my work is like, but really, I would just let the other three panelists tell you like what grad school is like. It's basically what you expect, right? It's basically what I'm pretty sure everyone here would not be so much of a childish child that be like, oh yeah, science is amazing. You're gonna like colorful liquids or like flashing computer lights and then code some super AI that destroyed Mars and the moon or like cure cancer within 2 days. No, right? Research is boring, right? This is not movies, right? But you gotta go through. If it's truly what you like, you want to change the world, you want to help people, you want to discover new things, then you will power through it. And yeah, that's about it. And of course, I will be able to take a lot of the questions, but I would say after the other panelists have finished speaking, I will also be able to answer a question. But yeah, thank you for letting me ramble. I feel like a grandpa here. I please next.
Thank you, Kevin. So we'll now move on to Hasti, which is a PhD student at UC Waterloo. So I'll give it to her now.
Yeah, thank you both, Kevin and Andrew. And basically whatever they said, pretty accurate in their own way. And I would start or like go on about my talk. Again, sorry I didn't prepare any slides or I don't have an awesome webpage like Kevin, but I would talk about or like tell a more personal story of my shared experience with both of them, but as well the differences that happened for me in my undergrad and how I got here because it's a little bit more unique to whatever you would hear on like a day-to-day basis of like a graduate student, experiences. So yeah, I would start with my research experiences in my undergrad, which is basically again, I started to look for research experiences at York when I was in my third year. So I finished my third year courses, and I was mostly doing my ECS courses because I finished all my general courses at start. So I was just like going through more advanced courses, taking with like different professors just to see what I like. And in the middle of that, I was also like super active. So volunteering here, there. And after my third year, I was volunteering somewhere so random. And I saw one of my professors, my previous professors in my third year, for software design. So the famous 3311 that so many people hated, but I did good in that. I had a good prof and I enjoyed the course. And I saw him in like the most random place on at York, basically, and it was like, oh, hi, hello, because again, I had like good relationship, sitting up front, talking to them, going to office hours, and I did like relatively well in the course. So he already knew me. And after, like a bit of time, I was surprised that, oh my God, you remember me. That's actually awesome. And I knew from the classes, because when you go to classes, some professors will actually announce that, okay, I'm this person with this experience and I'm doing research. So whoever is interested, you can like reach out to me. So from that, I knew he's actually like doing researches in software design and software architectures. And that was something that I was interested in. So yeah, just a quick catch up, and I asked him, "Do you have any position available?" And he said, "Yeah. Why don't you apply for? Like reach out to me. We can talk more. I'm gonna explain whatever I have, like ongoing projects or anything that I'm working on, and we can talk forward." So after that, I reached out to him, and we set up like a quick Zoom meeting. And we went through his like projects. So between the topics that he had, basically there was like a couple ones that I told him like, okay, I'm interested in these topics. What do you suggest? Like personally, where do you think there's, more potential to grow? And one of his projects that he was working with was actually partnered with IBM, which he said that, okay, if you don't have any restrictions for like applying, um, I would suggest you to take that and doing it as part of the project. It was more of a, like an applied project, I would say. So just coming up with the software and a system for the ongoing projects that was happening. So it was in the middle of like the phases of the project. They needed the system to get implemented, which was a machine learning software. And it was like, okay, I know that you like the software design aspect of it. You have machine learning experience. I already took my machine learning course at that point, and I told him that, okay, I'm interested in machine learning and doing the systems. So he was like, okay, I will suggest you to do that. And regardless of that, any projects that you choose, I'm okay to work with you. So, parenthesis here is that me as a student in his class and during the time reaching out to him and everything, I was keen enough to introduce myself, to show interest and everything, to a point that he says, okay, I already know you and I know how you work, how you study, how you like do. So, I'm okay with any project that you take because I'm gonna know like you're gonna work well on it. And I was like, okay, that's actually flattering. I wasn't like expecting that at all. So yeah, I took the IBM project and basically he told me that let's do a LoRa or an NSERC project. So apply during like the deadline. I'm gonna write the proposal for it, put it on as a project so we can have like the funding and everything and make it, as part of the award. So like sure, let's do that, do it like in the official way. Um, this happened during fall, so we wanted to start it during the next summer, basically. Um, I waited during the time, the deadline is again, as Kevin mentioned, in a couple weeks, and we did the whole proposal, the application, and everything. We submitted it, but I actually didn't get it. So the project, even though it was backed up, it had partners. I had a solid CV, GPA grades and everything. And basically like a good letter from my professor that, okay, like I want to work with this person. Um, she has this experiences, XYZ. So, a pretty solid proposal. But for some reason, like that year, so many of my friends like didn't get the answer. I even like reached out to Andrew for some basically letter of interest like templates. Because at that time I was like going to different labs, get to be friends with master students. I don't know if you remember it. But yeah, he sent me his like template of his answer. And I used that, like it was pretty good. But again, unfortunately, I didn't get it. However, when I went to my professor with the rejection email, and I was so bummed, like, oh my God, I have this opportunity, like great projects, I don't know, like good proposal. I was like so hopeful for it. But I got rejected. Like, what would happen if, it doesn't go through? I already missed the lower end like answer deadline. I have to like look for other opportunities. So I went to my prof and or like supervisor at that time. And he said that, okay, it's fine. I will hire you as an RA instead of, as part of the award process. So we still can work on the project together. And I was like so happy, like overjoyed that he still wants to give me the opportunity. So I would say like from up until this point, um, it's basically have a good enough relationship with prof, like different instructors, um, basically, um, like students even to reach out, getting to introduce yourself and basically everything else. It will bring more opportunities for you. And another thing is not to be afraid of asking, as Andrew and like Kevin said, like just be persistent, ask, be stubborn, because again, the worst thing that you get is a no. Um, and yeah, you can like follow along with like some other thing. It's just that you yourself know your path that you want to like step into, and you follow that. So yeah, I started the RA position and basically doing like the project. It was supposed to be like a 4-month project. I did the thing, I finished the application, and during that time, I had, because it was an IBM project, I had weekly meetings with my supervisor, another student, like master student that was working on different part of the project, and the IBM representative. So it's definitely a good connection point with people both in industry and in academia. Um, so by the end of summer, it was, like just gathering up whatever was done, the results and everything. And we sat sat down and we were like, okay, we have enough material to continue, or even maybe do, like a quick paper, like a small paper to even publish it. And maybe we can like go forward with it a little bit to, get more results, make it publishable and like a better conference as well. So during that, I was like, I also want to finish my degree on time. So I need to have full-time working hours on this project if I want to get something good out of it, as well as doing my other courses. So one thing that I asked from my professor was that let's do it as one of those computer science project. So I'm officially working full-time on it, and we can have time to publish it during fall. So the whole, again, we did the proposal, submitted to the department, got accepted, and I'm having it as a course. So I'm getting both credits for the paper that I'm doing, as well as doing like a research. So it's gonna get like published. Um, so yeah, the 4 months, basically projects turned into around like 8, 9 months of work. And during fall, I was lucky enough and fortunate enough that so many conferences actually happen at York. So I attended 3 conferences, two for posters and one for the actual paper presentation. So yeah, during that time, even though it's hard, so many people might be afraid of it, but this is something that you have to like be willing to take the leap of faith of talking to people, network. It might be like weird at first, but you get used to it. And it's the way to go. Like, to be honest, that's the way to go. I talked to instructors because I was like, okay, I want to continue at this point because I'm enjoying research. I definitely want to do grad school, master or like PhD. I wasn't thinking about PhD to be honest at that point, so I was like masters. I'm forming connections with students, different universities everywhere, even different instructors, because I would ask my supervisor or look at the papers and do a form of like research before the conference because you can see the information on the website to who's attending, who can I approach, like what's the best move so I can like utilize my time at the conference. Um, so with that, I approached some people that I was like, okay, there are like good, potential supervisor here and there, like different universities. So like after that, I just like, yeah, can I connect you through LinkedIn? And they were like, yeah, sure. I mean, good talk, good presentation, whatever, like the rest of the formality. Um, so it's my fourth year. I already have a paper published. It has, partners. So I mean, good name, just for the sake of like the good name. Um, and I'm looking into grad school. So I'm trying to apply for basically masters. I didn't even think about PhD at first. Unfortunately, I passed York deadline at that point because York grad school deadline is by I think, the end of December. And it was already after that. Because of some documents, I missed the deadline. So the first um, application deadline that was due was Waterloo. So I applied for masters first, or like the only application that I submitted was masters. And as Kevin said that, I sent tons of emails to different supervisors. This is my CV. Another thing that you can do is I read your work, your recent work, your most influenced works in the supervisor basically research paper, publications, and everything. I read it. This is like a summary of that, what I understand, and how it's related to me. So your lab is related to my experience as well, and I'm interested in working with you. So you're kind of proving yourself that I put the time to research you and your lab. It takes time. It's a full-time job. Like, I'm not gonna lie. That's a full-time job. It takes so much time, but it's worth it. So, one of the supervisors that I reach out to, which is my current supervisor, I met her at a conference. So I knew what paper, like her students was basically presenting. So I kind of had like a more personal kind of approach to her that, oh my God, like that paper was awesome. I'm really interested in your work, your lab, and everything else. So yeah, fast forward of like reaching out and following up so much. Like I don't even remember how many emails I sent her. Um, she reached like back to me and was like, okay, like I read your application and everything, and it sounds, good. I'm happy like we talked. I remember everything. And the unexpected news actually came after that. She was like, okay, I like your paper, how you wrote, and you have experience as, like a master student. Because again, not so many undergrad students would publish a paper, but it's a possibility. So many of my undergrad friends has published a paper in a good conference. And she was like, okay, to be honest, I usually take PhD students in my lab because I value like good quality work over quantity of the papers. I will give you three choices. One is that um you might say, okay, after our talk, you're not interested in my work, and you say like goodbye. I wish you like the best of luck. Second, I do a master with you as a supervisor, but with the hope of you continuing into PhD. Or I'm willing to go into department and change your application from master's to a direct entry PhD. If you're willing to skip that 2 years and instead doing the direct PhD. And I was like, whoa, I mean, that's like totally unexpected. And she gave me time, because it's like a way big of a difference of, like the normal path, master's, PhD, to suddenly doing like a direct PhD. Because again, like PhD, it can take whatever, like how long. Depends on your work, if you work in between or how long you make it. Normal PhD is like 4 years, 2 years master's, but a direct PhD is usually longer than a normal PhD. So they say approximately like 5 years because you have to do more courses. So instead of four grad level courses or like more research-based courses, which is four, I have to do seven, which is kind of compensating for skipping masters as well. That's why it's gonna take longer, but the rest of the milestones are like the same, the proposal, the thesis, the defense, and everything else. So, yeah, I mean, based on my own situation, I was like, okay, I was considering doing PhD because I like research. It might be, um, sometimes like daunting that, oh my God, you're just like hitting a wall. I have nothing to do. It just like sometimes there's literature reading. But at the same time, sometimes it's fun. I was like, oh my God, I just, have a breakthrough in my project and I can, go at it. So basically I like that feeling, to be honest. And I was like, okay, I want to consider PhD as well. So I accepted the offer. And ultimately I'm co-supervised because I liked kind of more than what my supervisor offers. So I was like, I want to explore more as well. And she was generous enough to say that, okay, there are some professors that you mentioned, you're interested in their topic as well. If you want to, we can do co-supervision as well. Um, which again, I took that co-supervision, and right now I'm basically doing like software architecture from like my main supervisor, basically lab and like area. And my other supervisor is doing like distributed and like parallel system and also like slash big data systems as well. I haven't started my research yet because I just wanted to finish the bigger chunk of my courses first because again, it's a lot. I want to focus on my research afterwards. But from these 2 semesters, I took two research or like higher level grad courses. So it was mostly like reading papers, discussing the approaches and how, how the industry or, like the academia is working right now, like new papers. So it was more than just core courses or like theory, which was like really interesting because both of them had projects. One of them was again getting sponsored by IBM. So I also did a project with a problem from industry in one of my research courses back in fall. And right now I'm doing my core courses like 2 by 2, and I'm actually like looking for projects to, collaborate with my lab mates and everyone. So yeah, I know it was like more personal for me, or like the story, but I just wanted to say that again, it's more unique compared to what Andrew and Kevin said. And I just wanted to emphasize that your story or how you approach this shouldn't be the same as everyone else. So there's way too many footsteps that you can, take into. It just that my only 2 cents would be take as much opportunities as you can. Be careful of the red flags of those people that you're gonna work with. Because again, I'm hearing like stories from my like friends that they're like, okay, we just took it just because we got an offer. It shouldn't be like that. You need to be comfortable with your supervisor, with your lab mate, with the environment that you're in. I would say that's the most interesting, important thing because if you're not comfortable, you're not gonna survive to the end of it because it's so much hard work. You're gonna enjoy it if you're like passionate enough, but at the same time, if everything is all right, why make it harder for yourself? So again, trust what you're doing, form the connection, and again, like don't be afraid of rejection. I got rejected, and um, it was sad. Not gonna lie, it was pretty, a sad time for me that oh my God, I just got rejected from the awards, but it worked out. It worked out for the best. So don't be afraid of that. Just try harder and don't give up. And I think that's my time. Did I go overboard? I think.
No, we're on time, don't worry.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Again, I would be happy to get connected to you guys. Like you can ask me more about like the specific application of, how things are for external applications or external reaching out, I would say. Yeah, I would be happy to answer any questions. Either now or like by the end of it. So
Thank you, Hasti. That was a definitely a really unique story, and I think
yeah.
a lot of people would relate to what you were saying about rejections and then like basically like special situations and all that stuff like that, right? So now we'll hand off to Karan for his panel now. We can't hear you, Karan.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep,
How
we
many
could.
minutes do I get? Once again, just a reminder.
Yeah,
How many,
sorry.
how many minutes do I have?
Uh, like we have an hour max. It's like I think it's a lot of time. So like,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, so again, I'd like first of all, thank you everyone for joining the session here. I want to talk about my experiences and my journey on joining grad school, along with some advice that I have. I'll talk about my research and the research of like generally like my lab and what we do. Um, But to start off, I want to emphasize the importance of having a good supervisor or a good mentor. And so, personally, for me, like I initially started looking at grad school in September of 2025. No, wait, sorry, September of 2024. Oops. So it was like the start of my last year of my undergrad, and I discovered that, oh, research is really interesting, and this is a career path, or this is a path that I'm interested in pursuing. Like I didn't know at the time what I was gonna do. You enter your last year, you're all like scared because, in a year, like this is the year where I have to get my stuff together. Um, and I initially started like reaching out to professors. And one of the professors that I liked as a teacher, I reached out to him and he, I guess, also was like interested in having me as a student because we started like doing research immediately, actually. And I think his teaching was, yeah, like I enjoyed the way he taught, but I didn't really enjoy his management style. And I would say that it wasn't necessarily like the best environment for me at least. So I remember this key opportunity, sorry, this key moment where, I was given a problem and I started reading research papers. And the next like weekly meeting, I presented him like research papers, and he was like, "Oh, you shouldn't be reading research papers. You should just like work on development," which for anyone that's ever done research, that's just like a really bad way to manage like a research project where, you don't look at what other people have done because how do you know this hasn't been done before? Or, what if you're wasting a lot of time on something useless? So it's just like, yeah, like I think one of the most important things that you should be looking out for is your like professor or your supervisor making you do like a very extensive literature search. If they don't make you do this, I don't know. I just think that's like a really bad way to do research, and it definitely like produces suboptimal results. Like if you don't know what uh the current like standard is and what people are doing, it's really hard to build on top of that. And that's what research is. Research is incremental additions on top of the work that other people do. It is very painful, but it's very necessary. And additionally, there were also like a lot of time management issues with this professor. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is be cautious, because if you end up doing a master's, you're spending 2 years under the supervision of like this one person. And again, you even if you're just like a research assistant for now, like staying too long, which would essentially like corrupt some of your habits. So, you're going to have some bad habits, you're going to have these bad practices, and it's not like the student's fault. Like the student doesn't really know any better, but it is just something that you should watch out for, where you want to talk to their grad students. You want to ask them about, how they find his supervision or her supervision. You want to ask them about how they are progressing throughout like their projects, and if the supervisor creates any like unnecessary hiccups. So yeah, and I think there's also like a level of compatibility that has to be there where your professor should be understanding. Like you ideally don't want to work with someone that just demands results. Like you want to work with someone that sees you as like a human being. And I haven't seen a lot of that at York, but I've seen like a lot of that at U of T where like professors just like use you as a machine to publish results. And so you want to be a little careful with that. Um at least for me, so after this opportunity, I was very lucky to connect with the grad student of my current professor. And so I met him at Industry Night, which is essentially shameless plug here, but York University Robotics Society hosts an industry night every year. And this is in September. So I met this grad student in September, and we initially like started talking about neural radiance fields. Like this is the stuff that I was like reading about on my own, but I had like no experience with computer vision at this point. And so we were talking about neural radiance fields and implicit activation functions, and we just had like an interesting conversation, and he invited me to visit the lab. And so I ended up visiting the lab, and I looked at some of the papers that this lab produced, and I was quite impressed and interested in the work that they did. And yeah, like I think everything just went right. So we decided that, we were gonna try a research project together. And I was onboarded like properly. So step number one, they made me do a very, very extensive literature search. Like I was reading for 2 weeks straight. And we talked about projects. They gave me a bunch of options on different things that they were thinking, right? And I got to essentially, give feedback. Oh, this sounds interesting. Oh, this sounds boring. And this was after the literature search. So after I really knew what was going on. And yeah, like we defined clear project goals. We defined like weekly meetings, which with my previous experience, like, I would be lucky to meet them like every month, really. And lastly, and this is I think like the most important thing, they didn't care about the project, they cared about me. And yeah, like I think that's something that is very important in the sense that if you have a promising student and you help them grow, like you'll get more than one project out of them, right? And like if you create an environment for them where they can flourish, you'll get more than one project. And it's like they don't care about like missing a deadline. They care about, oh, are you properly are communicating, like what happened, what did you try, what didn't work. It's like they care about like the development of the student as a researcher. And I think this is a really like good mentality that professors should have. I don't see it as often, but yeah, like I think that's what really like drove me into like loving the work environment. And so I had ended up applying to a bunch of like grad school applications like right before the deadline. And in February, I sent an email to the professor. I was like, oh, like I've been so my professor was on sabbatical, so I had mainly been working under like a PhD student in the lab, and that's the guy that invited me, onboarded me, essentially guided me throughout the entire process. And I sent an email to the professor. I was already on contract, so I was already like getting paid as a research assistant to work on this project. And yeah, so I emailed the professor. I was like, "Oh, I love working in your lab, and I would love to do a master's with you just because I find the work very interesting." And to my surprise, he said yes. So yeah, I remember I was in like Germany for another conference at the time, and like I like just like sprung up and I hit my head on like the car we rented. But yeah, so that was like yeah, again, hard work pays off. People see the effort that you put in, and so especially like first impressions really matter. Um, yeah, so on top of that, I guess I could talk about my research and yeah, all right, let's talk about my research. And I guess also show off some of the research that's done within my lab. Yeah. All right. Whew. All right. Here. Let me use this slideshow really quickly. How do I? One second, sorry. There we go. All right. I think I got it. Okay. Yeah. I think I got it. Cool. Sorry, I should have done this earlier. Here, let's just share screen. Can you guys see this? Yeah.
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect. So I guess this is a little outdated. We've shifted like scope a little bit, but it's still like quite accurate, and I think we're doing all of the experiments mentioned here. But essentially, like what we're doing is we're working on a differentiable ISP. So you might be wondering, what is an ISP? An ISP is an image signal processor, and essentially it's present on any digital camera, so including, the one on your phone. And what it does is it takes the raw measurements of the scene's irradiance, so like the pure light values that, hit your phone sensor, and it processes this to the image that you like end up seeing. So every time you take a picture, every time you like open the camera app and you look at the like viewfinder, right? Like the live feed before you or live preview before you take a picture. Like, it's going through an ISP. And you can imagine how many cameras there are around the world. And so, yeah, this ISP does a bunch of different things. It's firstly, I guess you guys can see the raw image isn't in color. And so, with the actual like ISP, the way that it works is you essentially like your camera and basically every other commercial digital camera they don't detect RGB for every pixel. They detect blue for one pixel, green for another pixel, red for another pixel, and they interpolate these. So that's like one of the things it does. It also like corrects any like sensor errors. Like vignetting is just like a aspect of, like the edges of your camera or the edges of your image are darker, and so that's something that has to be corrected. You have a lot of warping depending on the lens design and how poorly it was made. There's a lot of camera independence where you want to take an image and you want it to be independent of the camera's properties. So you want it to essentially be like standardized, right? Because there's all these different cameras, but every time you take a picture of the scene, ideally what you want to achieve is an image that has the colors that look similar to human perception. They look independent of all of the camera's like errors and manufacturing defects. And then you also want to make the image look pretty, right? Like this is a really big thing. Like every year, Samsung and Apple essentially compete to have a prettier image at the end or a better camera. And most of that is like the ISP. So the flagship like S26 and the current iPhone 17 Pro, I believe, have the exact same camera. So they have the exact same camera, both made by Sony, but I guess like the selling factor is the ISP, which is proprietary for both companies. I'm not really going to get into like the different, actually, you know what? We can get into the different steps. So I'll just walk you through like how an image evolves while it goes through an ISP. So this is actually a cropped image of my graduation. I think I'm here somewhere. I don't know where, but I'm here somewhere. And so this is like my graduation ceremony. You have like the York thing at the back, right? And so these are some of like the more abstract steps. These aren't like all of them, but they're a little more abstract. You correct some dead pixels. So, like some pixels, if your phone's exposed to the sun, are just like manufacturing defects. Some pixels like don't actually record a value, and so you interpolate it along them. And you correct for like you essentially apply a little crop. Yeah, you apply like a small crop. There's linearization, which is essentially you set like the upper and the lower bounds for the image. There's like, so this is like the lens vignetting. So this is essentially like it's dark around the corners. That's like kind of what you're correcting for. So the corners get adjusted for. You demosaic, so this is where you add color. This is where you interpolate along the red, green, and blue pixels. Um, you correct for like any warp that's caused by the lens. Another crop. Now you do something called white balancing, where you're essentially like cameras don't really. Okay, sorry. What human perception does is it adapts to the scene's luminance. So if you're like under a sunset and the sunset's like really red, if you look at something, you still see its actual color. So like human perception makes this correction, and I guess so do cameras, just because they want to like have these images be perceptually accurate and also like perceptually just like good looking. And then you apply like a bunch of these steps that essentially make this image look good. And eventually, like this is what you have. This looks kind of bad because it's like really zoomed in, but or it looks a little grainy, I guess. But yeah, so this is kind of like what you end up with. And so this is a very abstract overview of the entire like process. And this is from like the DNG spec. So this is the minimal canonical way to process these like raw images essentially. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to take this process and we wanted to make it differentiable. And we also wanted to like, I guess, provide a library to do this accurately. So here's the issue, right? Let's say you have like an image that was processed using the best thing, like realistically, that researchers or developers can use right now. So all of these ISPs are like closed source. There's no like real ground truth on how to process these, but the closest thing to the ground truth is the DNG spec. Like they're saved in a file format called the DNG, and like the .dng file format, and essentially the ground truth, or like the, I guess, most optimal way to process this minimally would be like the DNG SDK. And so you can use that as a ground truth where you can see if, a certain ISP, a certain image signal processing pipeline follows the spec or not by just seeing if the outputs are similar. And in this case, not very much. The average difference is like 8%, the maximum is 80. And again, you get these like weird artifacts in like certain places of the image, which is just like completely inaccurate. And so what we ended up doing was we decided to like essentially like remake the DNG SDK, which is in Python. It's not accessible. Sorry, it's in C++. It's not accessible. We remade it in Python and then PyTorch. And what that allows us to do is, first of all, it's very accurate. So now we actually provide this ISP that people can use. Like this is an error map and it's black, which means it's a good thing. And yeah, so we essentially like created this library, and this library now provides people with access to an ISP that actually like works and is accurate, right? It's also like consistent. There's all these like other metrics that we optimize this for. Um, and so yeah, so now like we have our result versus the ground truth, and it's doing pretty well. Some results are like very pronounced to the point where you don't really need to even like really use a heat map. Like you can just clearly tell that they're off. Um, and I guess I'm running a little low on time. So what I want to emphasize is this is differentiable. So differentiability is something that's somewhat hard to define if someone doesn't have a machine learning background, but basically it's a frozen set of algorithms. So, like it's an algorithmic implementation, but you can treat it like a neural network in the sense that you can propagate like gradients throughout the ISP. And what that means is, here, perfect example. What that means is if you have this ISP, right, and it's differentiable, what you can do is you can calculate your error, after the image is loaded, and you can reverse the effects of all the algorithms that you apply to see what you would have to change over here, right? So basically what this allows you to do is it allows you to train networks that come before the ISP. And so this is very important because, for example, denoising, it's always better to do denoising before you do any other operations. And so if you can do this, now you can train a more efficient denoiser that uses the error calculated at the end instead of in the middle. Because the other thing I want to highlight is you lose information as you go through it. Like you essentially do a lot of clipping, there's a lot of quantization. So you start off with like a 16-bit image, and at the end you get like an 8-bit image, right? You essentially remove half of the information, plus you do all of these operations for perceptual like enhancement, but they actually cause you to lose critical information about the scene itself. And so there's like a bunch of these like operations that happen, and it's important or it's useful to essentially have uh, a way to train something that comes before the ISP. One like very common thing that's done nowadays is people optimize lenses, right? And so they want to optimize a lens, and it's just like always more efficient to optimize a lens based on what the rendered image will look like. So if you have a differentiable ISP, now you can like optimize lens designs so that they're more efficient. So you have like a better like perceptual rendering at the end, and you don't like waste all the computation on optimizing lenses on the parts that don't really matter or can easily get corrected for. Yeah, here's like another like really quick example. Basically, throughout every like different step, so every step that I showed you, you can add like a little neural network. And what this neural network does is it can take like differences of the intermediary like steps, and you're able to calculate residuals, which is just like it's metadata, right? You can calculate this like very small vector of numbers that you can store alongside the image. So once it's rendered, you can store this alongside the image. And the benefit of this is you can use a small vector and with an enhancement network. So you can like train a machine learning model to use this vector to perform a certain task. And so you can, like use an enhancement network, and this enhancement network can produce an image that is like you essentially feed back the information that was lost during processing back in for a specific task. So with object detection, you're clipping out a lot of color information, which might be useful for classifying objects. And so, like when you're going from demosaic to white balance, right? Like before you do the like white balancing step where you're changing the entire like color appearance to be more human accurate, you can essentially like store that information. Like you can train a network to efficiently like store that information, and you can feed it back in later if you want to do object detection. That's just like one example. I can also go through some of the here, one second. Yeah, I'll also go through like some of the stuff that my lab works on, which I think is a little more flashy, but are we good on time? Oh, wait, Windows stopped. Let me fix that. All right, can you guys see this? Yeah. Okay, so this is like our team website. These are some of the most like recent publications. I kind of skipped this one because this one's hard to explain, but all right, so let's start off with like the most recent. This was published to SIGGRAPH Asia. That was like what, December? So this was like published essentially last month. And what this is you're trying to generate so when you have an image with motion blur, right? You essentially have some sort of information about the motion that occurs in this photo that you take. And so you can actually like take this blurry image and you can reconstruct a video using like diffusion models. You can reconstruct a video of the motion that occurs. And yeah, like I just think that's like really cool. So you can even do this for like historical images where, you have this famous image of Muhammad Ali, right? And you can essentially like predict the motion that's happening in the scene and you get like a very accurate description. Not only does this remove the actual like motion blur, but it also like again generates video of the most likely like movements that cause said motion, and you can actually extend the time frame. Like you don't actually have to be limited to the motions that occur during the exposure time of the image. You can actually also predict the past and the future, and it's like a bigger prediction. Even like with this, like you can predict past and future. It's a little laggy. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's lagging. But yeah, so that's just like one really cool thing that you can do. Like this face is like blurred out, and so you can like reconstruct the facial features. I have no idea what this is. It's doing something. But yeah, cool. So again, you can also like remove the actual like motion blur occurring within the video. And of course, there's like limitations because it hallucinates. It's like a diffusion model, but usually it works out for most like non-complex images. So yeah, that's like the most recent work. This is essentially like geometry aware in painting. So this is one of Costa's students, and what they're doing is you essentially have these like machine learning models that are able to uh, learn 3D representations of a scene, right? So you can search these up. They're called like NeRFs, or you have like 3D Gaussian splatting. What this does is this introduces like in painting that's like 3D aware. So, if you like remove a chair, you want it to reflect the entire 3D scene. So this is rendering like novel views of a scene that's been like fit into a machine learning model. Um, I don't think they give us an example of like one that we can actually, yeah, no, here, let's just cycle. So yeah, like you can like, sample a view from a different point and the in painting. So like removing or adding something in will be like essentially accurate. Like 3D geometry aware. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. This is, what is this? Oh, this is something else. Yeah. I guess that's everything I wanted to show up for this one. Yeah. So again, like I think this is like super cool. When I first saw this, I was like, oh, like cool. They're actually like able to do in painting. So they're able to adjust the weights of like these neural network models to remove objects or add objects in. And again, it's like geometrically consistent. Cool. So I guess like the last one that I'll talk about is Harry's paper. And this one's a little like weird to understand if you don't have like a background within computer vision, but it's really cool. So essentially what you do is you take a bunch of these yeah, sorry, you take a bunch of uh okay, how do I say this? Yeah, you take a bunch of like different deep learning models, right? You take a bunch of like different deep learning models that essentially try to understand uh, images, right? So you have CLIP, for example. You have like a bunch of these like VIT models, you have VLMs, right? They all ha take in images as an input, and then, they're trained to maybe like generate another image or do some sort of task on them, but they have like some representation of these images within their like neural network weights. And what you do is you essentially cut these models in half. So midway, like somewhere midway, you probe these weights. So you take all of these weights and you try to map them to a higher dimensional space, right? You try to map the weights at a certain point to a higher dimensional space. And you do this for a bunch of these different models, right? You do this for a bunch of these different models, for a bunch of input images that you feed in. And what you get out of this is you essentially get this thing called a sparse, well, like all of these are sparse autoencoders. So you like take the weights of the network at a certain point and you feed it into a higher like dimensional space. That's called a sparse autoencoder because you're encoding it to a sparser space. And you get a bunch of these, right? And you essentially like train a custom sparse autoencoder. So you train a custom network for all of these to go from a smaller latent space, sorry, a smaller interrepresentative space to a larger latent space. And you do this for all of them, but you train it so that all of these map to the same space. And what this allows you to do is it essentially allows you to create a map of activation representation. So within a neural network, you can think of it as a brain. When a bunch of different like neurons activate in a certain sequence, right? That's usually like consistent of a certain concept. So this can be seen in humans. Like I this is kind of funny, but I remember there like someone found a neuron that like within another person that activated for like Miley Cyrus, something like that. Like I kid you not, like you have a neuron or a set of neuron activations in your brain that signal the presence of the concept of Miley Cyrus. So that's kind of cool. But they did this for like neural networks. And so now what you can do is you can like so let's say you have like one activation. What you can do is uh first of all, you know every concept within a scene. So let's say like, you do this like discovery. So what they're able to discover is if this one neuron is activated over here, that signals that, there's the color yellow present in the scene. If this other neuron is activated in this like sparse representation, that means that there's a dog face in this scene. So they're able to like essentially map this all out. And you can even like map out again, like where exactly each concept is present. And one like really cool thing you can do is now you can do the opposite. Like you can actually take this latent representation and this one neuron is like activates when there's a dog present or when America's present. So like whenever there's like some sort of symbolism of America, this neuron's activated, you can set this neuron to true or like one and then everything else to like zero. And you can actually like visualize the actual concept itself. So these are like concept visualizations. Like this is the visualization of like prism corners, right? Like this is like you only turn that one neuron on, and this is what it looks like essentially, or our like best visualization. This is essentially just stars, and like this is like what the visualization looks like. This is kind of the concept visualization. You can see like a bunch of stars in there. This is like the letter C, musical instruments. Like you have like all these like notes and stuff. It's actually really cool. So they essentially like came up with a way to probe machine learning models for like better like I guess understanding or reasoning. So yeah, I think that's like it's a little like hard to wrap your brain around, but essentially like you can probe for concepts, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I think that's all I have for like research. If anyone has any questions, that's good. Any like sorry, some last minute advice. So if you guys end up doing like a research project and you haven't already, it's very normal for like research timelines to not work out. Like it's almost expected that, like something you don't like again, you're going to research project trying to do something new. And so you don't really know how long it's going to take, and that's normal. And like no one should shame you for taking longer than, it does. Like it's just like very extensive process of like creating information. Exactly, yeah. It's like I've my mentor, he was at like Adobe recently, and he spent 6 months like trying to work on something, and it just like didn't work out. And then in 1 month, you know, it finally worked, and within a month he finished the paper. So it's just like it's very uh just like, yeah, it doesn't work until it does. Um so another thing is approaching like professors. When you approach a professor, I'd very strongly recommend that you read their work. Like you should know what they do because, they have a bunch of people approaching them for, research opportunities. But if you actually read their work and you have a genuine interest, like they'll be able to tell. It's also maybe like best if you approach their students first. There's like a lot of professors that I know that aren't very approachable. And so if you like know any of their students or if you can reach out to some of their students first, they like that's usually I'd say like the best way to really like reach out to a professor. Um, the other thing is like quality over quantity in the sense that at least in academia, it's like if you have one good paper that's worth more than like five bad ones. Like you really want to, I think at least like for your master's thesis, like you want to try to do something that's important. And a part of that is just like learning. Like again, quantity does help you like get more comfortable with, the writing process, the yeah, like the actual like research process. But I definitely recommend it's like a lot more helpful to your career if you focus on more impactful publications. There's this chart that I saw at some point. I don't know if I can pull it up, but essentially it's like the quality of the work and then the impact on your career. And if the quality is bad, like it has a negative impact on your career. And then as quality increases, the impact increases, but it plateaus, like it, slightly impacts your career. And then at a certain point, there's like a threshold, right? There's like an innovation threshold. And once you reach that point, the impact on your career just like skyrockets. And so you want to try to like work on problems that are like more impactful, ideally, because that will like help you out. But again, I think like it's very field dependent, so talk with your professor about this. But oh, one more thing. So when it comes to like choosing a supervisor or professor, take a look at like the Rate My Prof reviews, right? Being a good teacher doesn't necessarily mean that they are a good professor, but like don't just look at, how entertaining their lectures are. Look at, like, oh, how fast do they respond to emails? Look at, oh, how forgiving are they when it comes to like grades or whatever. Like there's all these different factors that you can probe into, and that'll give you a pretty good idea of how good of a professor they are. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you for letting me do this. Appreciate it. And yeah, if anyone has any questions at the end, I'd be happy to answer them or in the chat.
Hey, Karan. So like, if you guys have any questions, now's your time to ask. But you can also reach out to them if you like want to ask later on. So if there are no questions, then like we can go our separate ways unless anyone has any questions.
Maybe just a quick comment because give people a chance to type or figure out if they're getting a question.
Hmm.
Kevin had mentioned that, and unfortunately he's not here, that he had started off not necessarily interested in um, what was it, molecular simulation and all of that. Right now, most of my work is at the intersection of machine learning and databases, but I definitely started as being more interested in explainable AI. Databases on their face aren't necessarily the sexiest thing to go in and then like dedicate years of your life into. Um, but it's one of those things where it's like just go out, give something a try. Uh, familiarize yourself with it, and over time, I've absolutely fallen in love with databases, like the field I'm in. You know, you won't know if you're really interested in a topic, or you won't have a full picture until you dig into it some, right? So this really gives you a chance to do it. Um, and with all of our stories and how we ended up where we're at, it's kind of can be easy to be like, oh yeah, it's survivorship bias. You know, these guys, they got lucky, they found somebody, some prof that was willing to work with them, they got a lucky break. But really, what it kind of comes down to, and I kind of love this quote, it's luck is where preparation meets opportunity. Um, if you do the hard work and you do the work, you're not expected to be anything like, some miracle worker, you have some crazy skills. You have the requisite skills, you have the interest, you have, the effort, and you show that you're interested. And then you look for these opportunities and you can find them all over the place. The profs need students to, it's the normal pipeline in academia is you have grad students that are helping you with your projects. So they're looking for people that are engaged. They're looking for people that are willing to put in some effort.
Yeah, so yeah, to respond to that, yes. Originally I was just about to be like
I,
yet another like
I think you
random
should say
machine
the
learning
question.
and
Like,
machine learn. Yeah, I know. I saw that question. I'll answer that too. Okay.
oh,
Yeah, Carson asked, how do you guys weigh pursuing graduate study versus trying to enter the industry? So I've let me finish. Yeah, another machine learning, right, engineer, but eventually you will discover something, and then you will dig deeper, and then you will like it more. So don't just like dead set on one topic. Be like, oh, I want to do the coolest machine learning, machine learning, image generation, the coolest thing, right? No, don't have to. Okay, so Carson, how do you guys weigh pursuing graduate study versus trying to enter industry? Okay, so I've heard directly from one of our best professor in our department, Michael Brown himself, that in a when back when I was still an undergrad, right? He explained that basically, sorry. So what happens? So a 2 years master is worth it's roughly equivalent to 5 years of work experience, right? Well, that's what he said, but maybe it depends. It really depends on which field, right? If it's like machine learning or like a heavy research field like chemistry, medical, then yeah, definitely it's worth much more, right? But I guess it well, first of all, master. Okay, there's a difference between masters and PhD. Masters. So generally, there have been people who have done multiple researches have shown a master's degree in most STEM fields in terms of money, like the total amount of money you will make in your future, your entire lifetime, future life. Well, assuming we don't end up having like some sort of like affordable immortality in our medical care and everyone can be more right. Masters is definitely usually, but most of the time is worth it. Almost almost always worth it. And PhD, it's usually not worth it money wise. It's like you gotta really have the passion. You gotta really have like you gotta love that topic, and you love that field really, really, really much, really, really much. And that's only a that's and even with that, that's only a necessary condition. That's not a sufficient condition. You gotta take care of it. If you do get other opportunity to like a really good internship, like a really good like job in like quant or like medical, then you should pursue it, right? All right. Yeah, you too.
Andrew, you want to go first? You raised your hand first.
Yeah, so just to comment on that really quickly, like and the question itself, I had started off with a pretty strong interest in doing grad school while I was an undergrad, and then once I had done my Lura and I had done the undergraduate thesis, I was pretty much set, right? I'm good. I want to do masters. I'm doing research, and then through the masters, I did this whole journey with one of my lab mates and one of my good friends, Alex Bianchi, as well. So he started out on Paratech with me, same supervisor. He followed ER to York as well, where we both worked on some projects together. Uh, at the end of our projects, basically, we had done some collaboration with IBM, and they went, "Hey, you guys looking to get a job afterwards? What's the deal?" And at the time, initially, when I had entered my master's, like it was like, "Yep, I'm going to do my master's. I don't have time for this PhD nonsense. I'm going to get a job afterwards. I'm going to make some money. Um, I just love the process so much. I love research, and I'm like, okay, I want to make a career out of this. Um, and the only real way to do that is, or the main path to doing that is PhD. So, Alex, I would like to say he's the smart one. Took the job offer from IBM. He's working there now, and I still meet with him weekly. So we joke that we're still working together. He's just getting paid. But I have no regrets about the decision at all. Like I'm super happy to be here and doing research. Even if, yes, it is not technically correct for opportunity cost for, if I want to maximize income. Something to be said for it anyway.
Yeah, I'll finish my like comments on this question, I guess. So, yeah, weighing grad studies versus industry. It's funny, Kevin, that you say that it's like equivalent to 5 years. As like Michael Brown student, I kind of disagree a little bit. It's really dependent on like how you like what you make of it. So with grad students, like your results are really what speak, right? Like no one really cares if you like went to U of T or York University for 2 years doing a master's. They care about like, how many publications you got at the end of it, your thesis, like maybe not your thesis. It's mainly publications like nowadays. That's like mainly what they care about. And, they care about like, of course, what lab you were in, who you work under, like all of these things do matter. But the most important thing, I guess, if you had to rank it, is number one, your work, the stuff that you do. Number two, like your lab, like how, like the stuff that they push out. And then the third most important thing is your school. Uh, and I think it's really dependent. Like if you want to put in a lot of work, if you're still like in that grind mindset where you want to uh like work really hard, I feel like grad school does make sense, but you also have to understand that, there might be better opportunities in industry. Like I think the best approach, and even for me, like my approach was you take the best opportunity. You take like you play the best move on the board. So you gather your opportunities and whatever you have, you just take the best move on the board. I think like that's a smart way of doing this. The 5 year thing, like it really depends. But like with industry, like the difference is if you work a job at like for example IBM, right? And you work there for 2 years, that's like no one really knows what you did there, right? Like there's no external measure. Like sure, you can write on your resume, you can exaggerate it, whatever, but it's like there's not a lot of variation in terms of like that impact on your career. But with a grad school, it's like you have a direct impact. Like your effort is proportional to the impact. And it's like grad school can either be like worth, like 1 year of like industry experience, or it can be worth 10. Like I know people that have done like a PhD and it's like they've had a whole lot of publications and they have like all these offers from these giant tech companies. And also the other thing is it's not that separate really. Like a lot of so yeah, for example, like a lot of professors at York University, they partner the research with like IBM. So, they work on like IBM research projects. And it's really like not as separate as you think it is. It's more just a trade-off of like flexibility and publication versus like just like pay. I guess like that's the best way to categorize it. Oh,
Um,
I can comment on
wait,
Abhishek's question first. Is
yo,
that or do you want to?
I was gonna add something to that
Oh, no,
question
no,
and
no,
also
go.
like go for
Do that first.
the
Go
second
ahead.
question as well. Um, my take on the previous question that everyone just at their comment is that um sure, like again, I don't have like the experience in the industry, but again, some people said that you get overqualified as a PhD student. That might have been true in a couple years back. But I feel like with the change in the qualifications and everything right now is the other said basically just collecting your own qualification, is a good idea at some point because so many people are pursuing master students at this point. the industry is a little bit, competitive. So again, I mean, the number of people who's pursuing masters, at least, between my friends, has been like increasing. And for the PhD, again, like that's like a different thing. For example, for me, I was like, I don't mind opening up the path of like academia for myself, whereas industry. That's just my idea. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't want to get like held back by an HR requirement just over title. If there's a point of, progression in the um kind of industry ladder later on. That's just my take. So again, it's based on you if you wanna, um work less than, the minimum wage job for a couple years and then, just start on it, later on. But again, it depends. Me personally, I think it's worth it because my interest lying in a different area, maybe like more in research focused industry jobs. But again, see what you like. Take all the comments as well. For the second question, which is regarding the courses in science, in terms of just approaching, projects and, some professors, again, as Andrew mentioned, is sometimes they require you to take at least like a course in that sense to, have some background in it. But at the same time, it's not like required per se. For example, I have a like biology background. I studied biology for like a full year as, like my program that I changed my degree. So it's technically I have all the chems, art of psychologies, biology, a couple of courses in that. Technically, I could have approached the professors or whoever was like working in, bio related or like chemistry related projects and say, okay, I have a background and I'm interested in working like in your field. But I didn't show that much of an interest to, go after it or, for example, be persistent compared to other areas that I like now. So I would say even though I have courses like background in that, you definitely like not the only requirement that you need to show to someone if you're interested in their work. Sometimes just like individual reading is enough. Sometimes they put it in their application that, okay, go take the course. I need to see a grade in that course. Sometimes that they're saying. But yeah, do it, individual projects in it or readings in it. Because again, there's no guarantee that whatever topic they're doing gonna be taught in those courses as well. Because obviously you cannot go and take advanced bio courses without the prerequisites. But again, it depends. Always ask and see how you can go with it. That's just my 2 cents of that.
There is another student's question, but just to sneak in one last comment on this. I think there's a bit of a perception that when you go to grad school, you're really locked in on whatever topic you do your thesis in, right? It's like, oh no, I did my thesis in, X, Y, or Z. I have to do that for the rest of my career. That's not true. The kind of biggest thing about grad school is not that it makes you an expert on that one topic. The biggest takeaway is that it's training. It's training on how to do and conduct proper research. So like for example, one of the collaborators I've worked with at IBM, he's got his PhD in something biology, some wet lab stuff, but he ended up doing some of the data processing in their lab because somebody had to. And now he's working at IBM, researching with them, working on their machine learning optimizer team. So there's always room to grow. There's always room to expand into new interests.
Yes, I see Miriam has her hand raised up, so want to ask a question, you can unmute or you can just type the chat.
Oh, okay. So, hello everyone. So, I just have a question regarding the writing skills. I know like you need to write during the research. So, how did you all learn like to write and have like patience for writing? Because it might take time to learn writing. So, it might get frustrating, but I want to know like how you all have that patience and any advices on how to really improve it.
They just throw you into the ocean and then you swim. Like literally.
Mm.
Okay. Okay, let's say okay, I won't be scaring you. No. So they will just I would like I would say I would tell you like throughout my high school I'm just my English my English mark was like really bad and then like but I still get into right whatever right but so I just like resent I just hate writing but you're just gonna do it and then so the fun thing about this is like this is no longer like a high school or like a undergraduate course in writing right you're not getting you're not just submitting one assignment and then you get a mark and then you get like a 50 and then you oh my god so, and oh my god I'm gonna get a D in this course no no like now you're doing research, right? First of all, you're at least somewhat familiar with the material because you're the one who created that new system, that new code, right? So what you're gonna do is write it down and explain it to people that so that they can also understand, right? To flex to people that, but also make them feel smart, so that in the sense that they understand it. Because oh wow, I'm so smart. I read this guy's paper, right? So this is no longer the most important thing is this is no longer a course you're not getting like you're not getting like a 40 and then getting a D in it. No, you will you will go with your mentor. You will see your mentor, and then your mentor will, if they're a nice person, like they would help you edit it and stuff, and you will keep looping back and forth until it's fully optimized, like a neural network, right? Like a fully optimized, little by little changes, right? This is no longer just submit an assignment and get a course. So don't be too afraid. Don't have that mindset at all. Your mentor is there to help you, unless your mentor is fucking I don't know, some asshole that be like, oh yeah, you give really bad. Okay, let's not even publish this thing. I'm like, not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. You know, if they take you in as their student, they would want you to succeed with them together.
Yeah,
Just you will just go through it, and then when you go through that process enough, and then eventually he will just push you in like they will just push you in like deeper and deeper water, and you will realize, I'm able to do it. Wow, well, I'm like better now. I'm like, and you will get brave.
yeah, the writing part is part of that training that you're getting in grad school to be a researcher. That if you've read any scientific papers, you know it's not written the same way you might do in creative writing assignment in English class. It's very direct. You're distilling down the information to what it needs to be, and you're trying to get the concepts across as concisely as possible. It's one of the skills that you just pick up by doing it, right? You hopefully you have a supervisor that's really attentive and can give you pointers, but it's like basically any other skill. You learn as you go. Yeah. Try not to be too
Yes.
intimidated and don't be upset if it goes slow at first, because it will go slow and you will need to edit and revise like crazy. I just spent the last 2 weeks doing revisions for a journal submission. It took some doing, but it got there.
Just to build on top of that, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So just to build on top of that, I think writing is also, yeah, like one of those skills. It just comes with practice, like really. So at least in my lab, we just do like a lot of like revisions on top of the papers that we write. So we, write an initial draft and we target like conference, or at least like right now, we're targeting conference with like a very low acceptance rate. So like everything has to be reviewed like 30 times. And so literally like you go through line by line, every single line out loud 30 times. And you make comments, other people like make comments, and so like the document's just like filled with a bunch of comments. And at least like good mentors and like good professors, what they do is like they point out what exactly is wrong instead of just changing it. Like they say, why is this wrong? And then they like cross it out and they tell you to rewrite it until you get it right. And so again, it's just like a process that's learned through practice.
Yes, something quick as well is that both writing and reading are hands in hand. So as you go through like the readings, you might find some authors or like some papers that are easier to read and you like in like a specific conference, for example. You have your goal in that conference, you see the paper is like well received, it's easy to read, it's like easy to perceive the information from it. So as you like look for those paper, you read more, on top of the practice as well, you kind of get that um kind of way of writing. You understand, okay, it's explained like in this way, like this. So unconsciously you can also kind of follow that footstep after, reading a lot or, kind of getting inspiration of, okay,
Mhm.
what does it make it, like easy to read, at least for me.
Mm.
So again, on top of that, you have an idea, you go through it, and the writing, the revisions, again, it's way different than whatever writing assignment you see, and it might be hard for you. Again, direct, the information needs to, be passed along. Um, and again, like as Andrew and like Karen said, it's your work. You already know, you know, how the narrative is going. So the same way that it makes sense to you, most of the time it's gonna make sense to an audience. You're building blocks, basically. So as you going through that, you know, doing this, like different sections, what do they, need to include, what to omit, what to explain more in where. These are something that as you both read and write, it will come to you. Again, it's not a scary thing, it's just a time-consuming thing at the start, and you get better at it. That's just
So if there are more questions, now is your time to ask. But otherwise, you guys have a good night. But we'll wait for a little bit. But if there's no questions, then I guess we'll go on separate ways and we'll send off from here.
I guess the last comment maybe is that, we said all that about writing. This is true of every skill that you're going to be picking up in research and in grad school. Basically, everybody starts off, you're finishing your undergrad, you have no idea what you're doing when it comes to research. Maybe you have a little bit of experience. Um, and it's intimidating to get started because it's like, okay, read all these papers, and you're going, oh my God, I know nothing about anything that I'm doing. Calm. It comes with time. It all comes with time, and it comes with effort. And you'll get there if you put in the time and effort. Focus on doing the good work. Everything else will come.
And I guess we should if you guys I guess for other three as well three of the panelists as well, if you guys have any question or have any like like problems, like you can come to us, and I guess like we would be well, okay, let's you can reach out to me by like usually by Discord. I guess I am deep fried pancakes on Discord, and yeah, you guys can, if you have any questions or like other issues or like other like or if you want to discuss the topic of our research with us, we're very happy to, unless we are super busy, right? We're super happy to like tell it to other people, right? Just show off to other people. So yeah, and or you have like other like I don't know coding questions whatnot, then you can come to me too, because I'm also the chair of SNADC. You want to have a pitch a project at SNADC, or you want to you know have like interest in computational biology, computational chemistry, and come to me, and then have like explainable AI, go to Andrew, right? Yeah, and Andrew and Hasti, and then vision, go to Karan.
Yeah, so if there's nothing else, then I guess we'll sign off here. So thank you guys for joining, and I hope you learned something and at least consider grad school more and like have an idea what to do. Thank you guys for coming. Appreciate it, and have a good night, everyone. See you guys later. Bye.
Have a good